Hey, it's me, Sklitch. I'm going to do my first ever album review today, and it's going to be on Orbital's Optical Delusion because it's new. And the way that this series will work is I'll probably just do new stuff, and then you guys can request old stuff if you want. I don't really mind. But yeah, hope you enjoy. So first off, let me just say a few things about Orbital. I've listened to Orbital 2 and Insides. I really like both of those. They're both absolutely classic albums. But surprisingly enough, I preferred Orbital 2 over Insides. Not sure why. But honestly, this album is great. I was surprised to hear something this late in their career be this good and nearly match those former two albums that I mentioned. One thing I actually liked about the album was the frequent guest appearances on here. Some better than others, we'll talk about that after. But, the singing was a lot more frequent on this album than Orbital 2. There's only like one or two examples on that album, and Inside as well, so yeah, it was just nice to see. I can honestly say that I was hooked on the album instantly with the song Ringa Ringa, the old pandemic folk song. Interesting name. But the thing that comes in at first, it sounds like a chopped up sample, yeah. And then these arpeggiated synths comes in and it all just builds up and becomes dead crazy, and it was just really good. It nearly went in my favourites playlist. And there's only like 100 songs in that, by the way, so that's really saying something. But yeah, it's just what a great track, great way to start things off. And then we have the track Day One, which kind of reminded me of a song on Orbital 2, but just more polished, better sounding. It also gave me quite a bit of Chemical Brothers vibes as well, weirdly enough. And the vocal performance from Dina Ipavic, correct me if I pronounce that wrong. But yeah, it's a really great song as well. The next track, Are You Alive, is also just a banger. I mean, I love how well fleshed out it is. I love the chord progressions, I love the bass, I love the drums. A lot of the songs in this album are near perfect. I mean, I don't really mind saying that. Like, a lot of them compare to a lot of their earlier bangers, like, I don't know, Belfast or Halcyon, and on and on and on. I'd even prefer some songs on this album over that song, surprisingly. While we're on the topic of older songs, I feel like a lot of those early 90s to late 80s sort of electronic artists, their quality in music in general just kind of worn off by like the 2010s. There's like that with Square Pusher, that's an obvious example, with Show Leader 1 and Beat Up a Hello and albums like that. And also like Alteca as well, and Aphex Twin to some extent, I know, I'm sorry, but yeah, with like Collapse and Cheetah and that. But Orbital, I feel like, I know this might be because I haven't dabbled in their like all the new stuff, but I don't think that their quality is worn off at all. I mean, it might have got a bit old for people who have listened to Orbital for years and listened to all their albums, but for me, it was honestly comparable to their 90s work. Okay, but now we probably get to my least favourite track yet, and probably my least favourite on the album, You Are the Frequency. I'm really not a fan of those squirrely, robotic vocals that appear throughout the track, and honestly the instrumental is kind of meh as well. I mean, I suppose towards the end with those acid riffs, it sounds pretty good, but honestly it just kind of flies by for me, and I'll probably just end up skipping it in the future. It's just a bit of a weird one. And now we get to probably my favourite track on the album, The New Abnormal. I love everything about this track, from the descending chord synths to like the voice sounding thing, and then the breakbeats that appear as well. And this one actually was worthy of the faves playlist, so there's that too. But yeah, I don't think any track on this album tops it for me. I haven't really got much else to say about it, it's just phenomenal. Now, the next track, Home, while I won't say it's one of my strong favourites on the album, it's probably the best vocal-based track. I love the vocal performance from Anna B. Savage, and I feel like it was the one that stuck with me the most. Like, I kind of remembered it after I listened to the album the most. So yeah, there's that. I think it's a pretty strong track. Like, the instrumental's good. There's not really much to dislike about it. Now, the next track, Dirty Rat, is interesting. For one, it's probably my second least favourite on the album. And two, it's kind of interesting that in this sort of genre of music, they've gone for like a political statement. And I don't think it really fit the kind of music. The guy who was singing it, Sleaford Mods, I think he's called, he sounded a bit annoying. And while I am British, he still sounds very annoying. And the part where he's singing on the chorus sounds okay, I guess. But the way that he was talking about stuff just kind of came across as a little bit cringe, and just like, probably would have done better on a different genre of music. Still not the worst track though. I like the instrumental. I like when he like sings. That sounds pretty good. But yeah, it's pretty meh track. Now, I really wasn't expecting the track Requiem for the Post-Apocalypse to show up. I mean, it's pretty much breakcore. Like, there was a lot of Square Pusher influence in there. It was a really fun track, and yeah, I don't really know what else to say about it. It was just very different, very cool, quite a breath of fresh air from dirty rap, some random guy shouting at me for like 5 minutes. But yeah, what a great track, very out of place on the album. Well, actually, no, you could argue that it isn't because it still has the same sort of vibe as everything else. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. The last two tracks, What a Surprise and Moon Princess, really don't stick with me at all. What a Surprise is better than Moon Princess. I mean, Moon Princess is just such a terrible outro, like, closer to the album. Like, I just think it's such a bad track. Maybe that is actually my least favourite because it just flashes by, nothing happens, it really doesn't stick out to me whatsoever. The vocals are weird, it's got a really weird, like, beat to it. And What a Surprise sounds alright, I suppose. It's kind of the genre that I'm not really inclined to listen to a lot of the time, but it still sounds alright. I'd listen to it if it was on. But yeah, as for Moon Princess, it's quite a terrible closer. While this album has its really strong points, I wouldn't say that it's consistent all round. The second half is definitely worse than the first half. I really enjoyed the first half. There was a lot of bangs on it. But yeah, aside from that, I'd probably give this album a solid 7.8 out of 10. And this album's definitely encouraged me to check out more of their new stuff, as I found out that obviously they've retained their quality that made them famous in the electronic community. So yeah, I think that's going to wrap it up. Make sure to recommend some albums in the comments that I should cover. And aside from that, I'll probably just review new stuff.